Yes, we are live right here on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. for the Good Fight. I'm so excited to be here on this night. I cannot wait to see how this story unfolds. I cannot wait. I'm not really sure what's going to happen myself, but I am here for the ride, and I hope that you are too. Thank you so much for joining us. I do want to remind us that the Good Fight is a space where we wrestle with our faith. We are trying to figure out if what we profess and what we proclaim about our faith is actually what manifests in the world. When we interact with other people, when we vote, when we buy stuff, like every aspect of our lives, like where is faith showing up and how is it showing up? And is it showing up in a way that we want it to show up? Like, so let's just talk about it. And so we are doing that though through the lens of the oppressed. So we are looking at it's kind of a quasi Black liberation theology where we're looking at, we're allowing the stories of those who are being harmed, who are being traumatized, who have been marginalized. We're seeing the story through their eyes. And so that's what we're here to do. And thank you so much for those of you who are joining for the very first time. I want you to know that there are ways that you can engage with the Good Fight on tonight. One of the ways that you can engage is to locate yourself in the story. Find your role that you are playing or that you have played or that you want to play, and just kind of tease that out. Like, what does that look like? How does it make you feel? Is it what you want to do? What's stopping you from playing the role that you really would like to play? Like, just to have some time of reflection, moments of reflection. Another way that you can engage in the Good Fight is to look through a window. So this is not your story. You are not familiar with it. It's not something that you have any experience around. And yet you understand that it is imperative that we hear the stories of other folks, that we take in their lived experiences and we allow that to live inside of us, and then give it over to the Spirit so the Spirit can move with it however the Spirit wants to. And then be mindful of the way that the Spirit is moving in case it is prompting you to respond. A third way that you can engage is to walk through a door. So this conversation is going to end at 8 o'clock technically, but it is possible for something to be said or shared in this space that you continue to think about later, think about beyond this moment. And then what does that look like for you? Like, how much more work are you willing to put in to agree or to disagree, to push back or to learn more or to research, like engage in more conversation? Like, all of that is left up to you to decide. And then you can also comment right here live in the space, and I cannot comment back, but I will put your comment on the screen so that everybody can see it, and we can engage you and you can engage others, and we can just have a good old time right here on the Good Fight. So thank you so much for joining us for the Good Fight. I want to tell you how I got here tonight. So tonight's topic is Christian recovery, and it's a question. Christian recovery? Christian recovery? I was talking to a friend who is, I don't know how to categorize him. I don't want to call him a recovering addict, and I think you'll figure that out, the why, in just a minute. But someone who in a season of his life was one who was addicted to injection drugs. Or I don't even want to say injection drugs, because I don't know if he was injecting them or smoking them. Like, I don't know, but he was addicted to drugs. And this was my first time hearing the story. Hotep, I see you. So he was addicted to drugs, and I asked him, no, he was, this is what happens. This happens to me a lot. A person will be talking about A. And as they are talking about A, they will say something that gives me a dog moment. And then I will want to, I want to pull out that dog moment and talk about it. But I realize I need to stay present in this story. So I'm holding on to this, what I've pulled out, and I'm going to circle back to it. So I've been knowing this person for quite some time, and I had never heard this story before. And that's why I wanted to pull out. And so as he was talking about something else, he said, and when I went to, when I was in, I can't remember how he said it, but basically he had been in inpatient, an inpatient program to help him get over his addiction. I did not know that. So I was like, wait, what? So when I got a chance, I said, wait a minute, you've been to rehab? Rehab would say yes. And I said, well, did it work the first time? And he said, no. I said, how many times did it take? And he said twice. And then I said, well, what was it about the second time that made it work as opposed to the first time where it didn't work? And he said that he had to learn how to get himself not be in the same environment that he was in when he was using. Like, I just have to get a whole new set of everything, a whole new environment, all new friends. Like, I gotta reshape my whole life. And he had not done that the first time. And then he said that one of the things that he hated about the program was that you had to wake up every day and you had to say to yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and say to yourself that I am an addict. Like, you have to wake up every single day and remind yourself that you are an addict. And he said he didn't like that. He did not like saying that to himself every single day. The whole point of him being in rehab is to not be this way. So for me to wake up every day for the rest of my life and say I am that which I don't want to be, he was like, I don't want to do that. So he stopped going. I not stopped going to the rehab, but I guess this was like the NA meetings or something like that. And so as he was talking again, I had a dog moment, like, oh. And so when I got an opportunity, I said, so to me, that sounds like Christianity. Like, every single day, the expectation is that you will remind yourself that you are a sinner. And so if your whole goal is not to be a sinner, then why are we waking up every day saying, oh, look at me, wretched man that I am, I'm a sinner? And so we started to tussle around this. Like, what does that mean? Like, why do we do that? Like, what is the purpose of me saying every single day that I am a sinner? Now, let me make sure that I'm clear. I do not believe that we are sinners. The one crucial point for me in the life of Jesus, if you believe what is in the Bible, what I don't understand is how we talk about Jesus taking on the sins of the whole world at the time that he was crucified. We say that he had to have taken on the sins because that's the justification we give for God not being present with him. Because when Jesus is being crucified on the cross, he says the words, he asks the question, my God, why have you forsaken me? So he feels within his body this release, this separation, this chasm that happens between him and God, and he knows that he is alone. And the way we interpret that is to mean, well, God could not be present in the face of sin. So because Jesus had all of the sin of the world on him, then God could not have anything to do with him. So then Jesus dies. He's crucified, he dies, and he is buried. And so he's buried with all of the sins. So he's buried with all of the sins. And then on the third day, he rose again. This is what we call resurrection Sunday. Now we call it Easter. We got bunnies and cakes and chocolate and all kinds of stuff and eggs. So if Jesus died with all of the sin of the world on his shoulders, then how am I a sinner? So he died with him and then brought him back when he was resurrected. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm not suggesting at all that we are a sinner, but I do know that we have been indoctrinated to believe that we are sinners. I do know that we have been conditioned and programmed to believe that we are sinners. I do know that many of us wake up every single day praying for, whether you get down on your knees or close your eyes or not, you're hoping that today you will be less of a sinner. So sin is ever present in the life of a Christian. And so I want to make sure that we're clear on that. I don't believe that, but that was my training. Like, that's how I was brought up. Let me see what Lo is saying. Lo says everyone sinned except Lucifer. Why would Lucifer's sins be exempt? Lucifer wasn't part of the world. So when Jesus says, I'm going to take on the sins of the whole world, where was Lucifer's sin? I don't think I understand. And I also haven't read his Bible either. So I don't think I understand. Help me understand what you're saying. And so we started wrestling with this notion that I've got to be a sinner. And I'm thinking, the way that I'm receiving the story that he's telling, because here, as he's telling the story, I'm looking through a window. So I have no idea what this feels like. I have no idea what this looks like to be someone who's addicted to drugs and having to go to rehab. I have not walked that path. So I'm looking at this through a window. And so the way I'm receiving the story, because I'm absolutely open to receiving it, the way I'm receiving the story is that way down deep in his Chandalaha, as Deidre, my friend, would say, way down deep, is like, this does not feel right. This does not sit right with me. I cannot, in good conscience, I cannot, in thinking about my own well-being and thinking about my own mental health, I cannot continue to wake up every day and call myself an addict as I am striving to be free. Okay. So I said, well, then why do we do this about Christianity? Why do we do this? I'm a sinner. And so he offered that perhaps the reason that we willingly call ourselves sinners is because we don't stop there. We say we are sinners who are saved by grace. And so because we're saved by grace, and I'm not really a sinner because grace keeps me from being a sinner. So I'm like, I can find victory in that. I can find joy in knowing that I'm saved by grace. I'm a sinner, but I'm saved by grace. And so I'm like, well, if you are saved again, why? If you saved, then how are you a sinner? So for me, it just didn't jive. So I wanted to do a more of a. I wanted to do a deeper dive, not an exhaustive dive, but a deeper dive into Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wanted to see if I could point out some similarities between Alcoholics Anonymous and Christianity. And that's what I want to talk about on tonight. So here's Lo saying, the world was Lucifer's domain. So if Jesus was taking on the sins of the world, why not Satan? I feel like that's my question to you. If Jesus is taking on the sins of the world, and the world is Lucifer's domain, then Jesus takes on Lucifer and defeats him. I think that's why we say in the Bible, there's a verse that says, death, where is thy victory? Oh, where is thy sting? Like the grave, something like, where's my victory? Where's the sting? I can find it really quickly. Where death. Oh shoot, every time I'm looking up a verse, they want to pull up a song. I don't want to sing a song. People made songs about everything. So it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 55. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? And so Jesus is absolutely victorious in this crucifixion moment. And so regardless of what Lucifer thought he was doing, he cannot beat Jesus. He cannot, he could try. You can walk over here, but you're gonna pull back a nub. So that's what I think about that. So Jesus took on the sins of the world. So then why would we pick them back up after Jesus has freed us from them? And so the only reason that I can think of for us to pick back up the sins is that the religion requires it. Christianity needs us to, it's necessary for the religion for us to be sinners, because that is what keeps us motivated and engaged every single day in this life of being a Jesus follower, that's what's prompting me to know that I am so grateful that Jesus died for me. I'm so grateful that he was this suffering servant. I'm so grateful that he was the final offering on the altar for me, that every single day I want to live in service to him. And the best way for me to do that is to remind myself of why Jesus made the sacrifice. He made it for my sins. Even though we weren't even like, I don't really know how it could be like, this is where I feel like people who the world call white kind of have this conversation about racism, where they'll say things like, I wasn't even born during slavery. Like, that's not my family. Like, how can you call me racist? Like, how, I don't even understand how I got here. Like, I didn't do this to anybody. And so I kind of feel like that in this moment about taking on all the sins of the world. And I'm supposed to call myself a sinner. I wasn't with it. By the time I got here, the sin's supposed to be gone. And so it's just a conundrum that I have that I've already figured out. For me, just means that it's a lot. Like, we're not sinners. But in the event, but because that is how we have been indoctrinated, then I just want us to think about it a little more deeply. And so I was looking into, I was trying to figure out which verse from scripture will help ground this conversation, be a source for this conversation. And I was reminded of this story that I love. I love this story. It's about Lemuel, who is a king, and he's having a conversation with his mother, and his mother is giving him what she considers to be some really good sound advice about what it means and what it looks like for him to be a king, and how he should show up for the people over which he shall rule. So she's having this conversation with him in Proverbs chapter 31. And I don't want to read the entire story between the two of them. I only want to read the part that I feel like helps me think about Alcoholics Anonymous and Christianity, and comparing the two. Well, I probably should say that Alcoholics Anonymous was designed as a Christian group. Right? It was designed to have it was the Oxford group at the time. They didn't call it Alcoholics Anonymous at first, but it was designed after this like kind of Christianity. Like, you need the Lord, you have to have a higher power. We'll talk about that a little more. And so absolutely, you can see the remnants. The issue for me is that the people who then came along after that to name it Alcoholics Anonymous, one of their issues with it, with the Oxford group, was that you were too stringent around this religious piece. Like, you really wanted people to be like Christian. You wanted it to have a specific bent. And for people who are suffering from alcoholism, they come from all walks of life, and they may not even have a God. So for you to say you got to have this kind of God in order to be free from alcoholism, like, it just wasn't going to work. And so they separated themselves from the Oxford group, but then they turned around, and we'll see in a minute, and did the same thing. Many of us do that. We are really frustrated with the systems that we find ourselves complicit in, the systems that are dominating us and oppressing us. And so we want to do something about it. So we divest. And we said, we're going to do our own thing. We're going to pull out and start our own church. We're going to start our own business. We're going to create our own denomination. We do all of this because now we want to be different. We want to get rid of the trauma. We want to get rid of the hurt. We want to get rid of the pain. And then we turn around and reproduce exactly what was, not exactly, we reproduce what we left from, we walked away from, with maybe one or two little twists. And so what really have we done except made a caveat for the thing that made us mad? So if you were harmed by if you were harmed in a church because you are Black, you start your own church and you center Blackness, but everything else is the same as the old church. If you've been harmed in your church because you are same gender loving, well, you start your own church, and then you say, well, everybody's welcome, even if you're same gender loving, but everything else about the church looks just like what you walked away from. So we create the same system with one caveat, the caveat that makes us feel better about who we are and who we believe we were created to be. So Lo says, sounds like Paul's conversion program. I'll be what you want me to be in order to convert you. So I'm not sure, because the people who are signing up for Alcoholics Anonymous are not signing up for Christianity. They're not adhering to the religion so that they can be liberated from their addiction. They're not. They're going to follow these steps, and I'm going to follow the steps not because I'm trying to follow Jesus, but because I'm trying to get rid of this addiction. The people who started the group are hoping that in the meantime, as you go on your way, then you will recognize Christianity. This is from the Oxford group. The Alcoholics Anonymous says that we just want you to recognize a higher power, something higher than you that can give you the strength that you need to break this stronghold from alcoholism. And so I want to read for you just the part of the conversation between Lemuel and his mother that I want to lift up so that I can ask the question afterwards. So here is, I think this is Proverbs chapter 31. I think it's starting with verse 4 through 8. I mean, we'll see in just a minute. But I'm going to read it and then I'm going to selah. So we're going to pause for just a moment so that we can calmly think about what we have read. Okay, here we go. Yeah. This is Proverbs chapter 31. This is from the easy to read version of the Bible. Lemuel, it is not wise for kings to drink wine. It is not wise for rulers to want beer. They may drink too much and forget what the law says. Then they might take away the rights of the poor. Give beer to people without hope. Give wine to those who are in trouble. Let them drink to forget their troubles. Let them forget they are poor. I want to read it again before we pause. Lemuel, it is not wise for kings to drink wine. It is not wise for rulers to want beer. They may drink too much and forget what the law says. Then they might take away the rights of the poor. Give beer to people without hope. Give wine to those who are in trouble. Let them drink to forget their troubles. Let them forget they are poor. So I really think that this is sound advice from sound counsel from Lemuel's mother. He is a king. Now, I am not suggesting that kings cannot take a drink. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not anti-alcohol, not at all. People who know me know that I am not anti-alcohol. But what she says to Lemuel is this: listen, you have the responsibility of the community in your hand. People are coming to you because they need help. People are coming to you because they need justice. People are coming to you because they are harmed. They need some recourse. And so because you are the king, you have to make sure that you are always ready, always fully present, always able to think clearly so that you can rule on behalf of the people. Not so you can do whatever you want because you can, but because you will always be thinking about the people and center them and center their needs, center their concerns so that you can respond to them in ways that assist them. That is your role as king. And I'm afraid, says Lemuel's mother, I'm afraid that if you drink, it's going to alter your capacity to serve as a good king. It's gonna mess with your head to the point that you just might forget the laws. You just might be in such a stupor that you can't even function as king. So let's just not even go there. The best thing to do is just not to drink so that you can stay in the position of king, mind, body, soul, and spirit, so that you can work on behalf of the people. I think that's great sound counsel. She goes on to say, though, let me tell you who you ought to give the beer and the wine to. Let me tell you who you ought to allow to get drunk. That's the poor people. Okay? Well, let the poor people get drunk so that they can forget that they are poor. Now, I don't think that drinking is going to make you forget that you're poor, but I feel like what she's saying is people who drink are drinking for a reason. There is something happening in their lives that's pushing them to self-medicate. And whether it's drugs, whether it's sex, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whatever that is that they cling to as a coping mechanism, that is who needs the drink because it's going to help them cope. So on some level, she's saying, I understand people who are having a hard time. They need a way of escape. And so this alcohol, this drink, this wine, this beer can be their way of escape, because for just a moment, even if it's just a moment, can we give them an opportunity in this life to relax and not think about the fact that their life is so hard? Can we just give them a chance to just relish in the fact that I don't have to worry about being poor. I don't have to wonder where my next meal is coming from. I don't have to worry about whether I can feed my children. I don't have to make a decision between medicine and transportation. Like, I don't have to carry all of the weight of surviving and existing. I don't have to do all that. Just give me a moment to just go into another space and just zone out and feel like a person, a human. And so on one level, I absolutely get that. Like, I'm like, yes, which is why it bothers me so much. It bothers me so much when we are collecting money for people who are unsheltered, and we decide as a church, we decide that we don't want to give them the money in their hands because they might do something bad with it. They might pay for cigarettes, or they might pay for some alcohol or some beer. And I'm thinking to myself, so because you are unsheltered, you shouldn't be able to have alcohol? Like, because you are unsheltered, you should not be able to sit down and just enjoy a glass of beer? Like, what does being unsheltered have to do with you being able to just enjoy a drink or a cigarette every now? Like, I don't understand the correlation. And so for us to feel like as a church, no, we're gonna help them make better decisions. I don't think that is our job. I know that's not our job. But that brings me to the second point, because what I feel like his mother is also saying is that we need to recognize that people are they're self-medicating because of situations that they're in, but these are situations that we have created for them. We create the poor. The poor did not come. I know that there is a verse in the Bible that says the poor will always be with you. And people interpret that to mean, well, we don't have to do anything about the poor because that's a situation, that's a problem we're never going to fix. We can just put a Band-Aid on it. We can just start an organization that talks about poverty, and we can pay all the people in the organization like these huge amounts of money, rather than working with the people who are poor to give them that money to distribute it equally, like, or equitably. Like, we're not trying to get rid of them, because that's how we interpret the scripture, the verse. But the way I interpret the verse is that God says you're going to have the poor with you because you have not yet come to terms with who you are and how you act and how you behave, because you are still thinking about who's going to be in power. You know, we got the disciples asking the question, who's the greatest? You know, who's the greatest? Like, Jesus, are you coming to give us back our land? Like, are you coming to dominate? Are you coming to show force? Like, we're still caught up in this kind of power, capitalistic mindset, that because of that, we cannot eliminate the poor, because to eliminate the poor would mean we would have to say, all that I have, I give over to the community, so together we can eliminate the lack among us. I would have to be willing to give up power. I would have to be willing to give up money. I would have to be willing to give up status. And many of us will not do that. We cannot bring ourselves to do that. And so Jesus says, well, if that's the case, if you can't get yourselves together, then yeah, you're always going to have the poor. And so here we are in Lemuel's mother saying, look, these people need some kind of reprieve. And if they're going to get it from drinking, then let that be okay. They need to be able to relax every now and again because their lives are so hard. And so this is what she offers to Lemuel to think about And then she says this too. This I'm not going to talk about this, but because she says it, I want to. I thought it was, still profound in what she's saying. So here's the other part of her, not the other part, but the next part of her conversation with Lemuel. Speak up for people who cannot speak for themselves. Help people who are in trouble. Stand up for what you know is right and judge all people fairly. Protect the rights of the poor and those who need help. Again, speak up for people who cannot speak for themselves. Help people who are in trouble. Stand up for what you know is right and judge all people fairly. Protect the rights of the poor and those who need help. And so again, I think that this is absolutely wise counsel on the part of Lemuel's mother that we could also take as a principle for us, those of us who are leaders. And I think all of us are leaders in some way. If you are the leader in your home, you're the leader in your church, you're the leader on your job, you're the leader in your neighborhoods. You're like, we have all of these different areas in which we can show and demonstrate leadership. These words are for us, not just the king, not just the president and the vice president and Congress, but for all of us to say it is up to us to stand up and to speak up for people who cannot speak for themselves and to help those who are in trouble, like to protect the rights of not just the poor, but everybody. Like, this is wise counsel that she's offering to her son. Lo says, Jesus encouraged his followers to give to the poor, stating, if you would be perfect, go sell what you possess and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Yeah, Jesus said you got to, if you want to be of service, you got to give up what you think you own. Right? That's whatever it is you think you have, whatever materialism has you bound. In order for you to really be a Jesus follower, that means that you're going to put the community first. And in order to put the community first, you become one of the community. And together you all live in harmony. Like, all of us should be singing songs and having something to eat and having somewhere to stay and having to, like, no one among us should not be able to have their basic needs at least met. Not if you really want to be a Jesus follower, because that's what Jesus was fighting for, like to dismantle this regime that thinks that power is the most important thing that we can hold. And in order for you to hold that kind of power, you got to enslave folks, because you have to exploit them in order to get the power and the money, the money that gives you the power. Like, that's the only way that it's possible, is for you to be an exploiter. And Jesus absolutely did not stand for that. And so what I thought about, there's utopia. That's what it would look. If we were really trying to be Jesus followers, we could make it happen. We could manifest utopia. And it also, so this story, and thinking about people who are they are suffering from addiction, and they are having to go to Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or Overeaters Anonymous. They follow the same design. They just use different words, because if it's alcohol or narcotics, like they interchange, they substitute the words. But I thought about this as a pulpit pastor, and I will never forget this. The very first eulogy I had to deliver when I was pastor of Mississippi City United Methodist Church, Dorothy Gunnels, her husband. And I went to the funeral home. Like, I was doing everything with them. I did not she was not alone. I was always there with her, making sure that we were getting everything together for the funeral. And it was at that moment, because this was my first time doing this. And so it was at that moment that I realized, wait a minute. These people at this funeral home are about to make a mint off of her, because she had plenty of money. But here she is at the lowest point in her life. Like she was like 80. And I think she and her husband had been together like 60 years. So I think that she, like fresh out of college or something, she marries him. So she had been with this man for 60 years of her life. And now she has lost him. So if you could just put yourself in that story and say, I've known this relationship for 60 years, 6 decades, and now it is no longer like overnight. A person dies overnight. Like it happens one day they are here, the next day they are not. And so she's grieving greatly. And so we don't have time to grieve, especially in the communities that we call white. It's been my experience. They bury their people faster than we do as Black folks. And so all of this is happening. Like you got to make a decision. Like what kind of casket do you want? What kind of flowers do you want? What kind of color do you want? Like all of these decisions are coming at you. You have to make them, and you are not in your right mind. Like you are like you are not thinking clearly because you are filled with so much grief, and the funeral home takes advantage of that. So they're selling you things that you do not have to buy. The prices are exorbitant. You could have got this casket over here for $2,000 less, and so they're exploiting they're exploiting your vulnerability, and it made me sick. So I was like, we're not going to make any decisions right now. Let's just think about it. Like, give us some pamphlets. I feel like that's why I was there, because I could think more clearly than she could, because it wasn't my husband of 60 years who had just died. And so I thought about that when we start talking about Alcoholics Anonymous or any of the Anonymous programs, is that people who finally decide that I want to make a change in my life. They finally decide that I want to be free from this bondage that I feel like I'm in. I want to feel normal again, because I haven't always been this way. This is something that has happened to me over some course of time, and I finally decide that I want to make a difference. And then we people who do this, Alcoholics Anonymous or Christianity, we extend a hand to them at the moment that they are most vulnerable, so that we can catch them where we need them and feed them what we want. And we want to use them. We want to use our rhetoric, use our propaganda, use our indoctrination, so that we can now create in them who we want them to be in the world. Yeah, we want you to stop doing drugs. Yeah, we want you to stop doing alcohol, drinking alcohol. But our main goal is to get you indoctrinated into this higher power, so that you can go out and become servants of this higher power. We'll look at it in just a minute. So this is Zaquan. They have to bury themselves faster than us because of lack of melanin. They start turning black. Oh, is that why? I didn't know that. I thought it was just a cultural thing. They're like, why are we waiting? Like, what are we waiting on? Okay. I did not know that. They have to bury themselves faster than us because of the lack of melanin. They start turning black. Well, it definitely happens faster than us. You are no doubt about it. So thanks for that. I did not know that. And so I want to take a look at, so what I've done is I've taken a couple of the steps from Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've put up some, it's me, Marquez. Yeah, I didn't. Thanks for joining us, Marquez. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. So what I've done is I've taken one of the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've put it beside the scripture that popped into mind for me. There may be plenty of other scriptures that I could have chosen, but these are just the ones that popped up that I was able to recall instantly. And so those are the ones that I went with, the ones that were first and foremost in my mind. And just began to think about how we are, think about if you are one of the ones who are acting like the leaders of Alcoholics Anonymous, and even many of us as Christians, if we are guilty of getting a person at their most vulnerable moment so that we can say we are helping them, and absolutely we are, but because it fosters our agenda, it furthers our agenda. So we're not helping them just for them. We're not centering their lives. We're not trying to do what's best for them. We're trying to get you free so you can work on my behalf. So let's take a look at some of these. It's not very many that I pulled up. Okay, so step number 1 is honesty. Okay, so all of the Alcoholics Anonymous steps are going to be on the left, and the scripture references are going to be on the right. And so step 1 in Alcoholics Anonymous is that you have to admit that you are powerless over alcohol, that your lives have become unmanageable. And so it's this notion of being powerless, like I have no control. I cannot handle my life. I do not have the strength. I do not have the capacity. I do not have the will. Like I'm basically nothing. Like I have no control at all in this season of my life. And so I have to say this. I have to say it. And so that goes back to what I was saying earlier about being called a sinner, and like, why do you call yourself a sinner? And then Ephesians chapter 2 verse 8 is the justification that my friend was trying to offer. It says, I mean that you have been saved by grace because you believe. You did not save yourselves. It was a gift from God. And so those of us who believe that we are saved, we're like, oh, well, I couldn't have done this on my own. It had to be for God. So now all of my life, everything that I do, I'm going to turn it over to God, because I cannot live without God. I cannot do this on my own. I cannot make my own decisions. I've got to have guidance and counsel and advice every single day, all day long, or else I'm not going to be able to function. And I'm just not sure that that's the message that we want. I'm not sure. I know that's not the message that we want to send to people, because because let's think about it, especially as it relates to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you did not have any strength or power, then you would not be able to free yourself from the addiction. Like you decided at this moment, even if it takes you 2 times in rehab, even if it takes you 3 times in rehab, even if it takes you 7 years in rehab, you have decided that I am going to keep working. I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to put one foot in front of the other every single day to make this happen. I can make my own decisions. And so that's the same thing as a Christian. Every day I do not for any reason believe that every single day you got to say, wait a minute, God, I don't know what to do today. I cannot function unless you tell me what to do. I don't know how to fix this problem on my job. I don't know how to handle my children. I don't know how to respond to them unless you tell me. I can't do it. And that is not the position that I think that we want to be in as humans, where we say, I'm powerless. I can't do anything by myself. Oh my goodness, I gotta have somebody guiding me all the time. And we're talking about God, but what we have to remember is that also translates to our relationships, because the way that we interact with God is the way that we interact with people. And so many of us, because we become dependent on God, we become dependent on others, because we start believing this idea, this myth, this notion that I can't do nothing on my own. And so here's another one of the steps. I think this is, I've only got 5 of them. Yeah, it's 12 of them, but I only picked up 5. Okay, so here's step 3. Step 3 is to make a decision to turn your will and your lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Made a decision. This is what we did in step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So again, this is the giving up of control. This is the giving up of ownership of your own life so that it can be managed and handled and controlled by God. And I thought immediately about Romans 8:28-29. It says, we know that in everything God works for the good of those who love him. These are the people God chose because that was his plan. God knew them before he made the world, and he decided that they would be like his son. Then Jesus would be the firstborn of many brothers and sisters. And so I thought about that, because there are many people who will say to you that when they talk about their addiction, when they talk about being adopted, when they talk about being molested, when they talk about having gone to prison, they will say that God allowed that to happen in their lives so that he could use us as testimony, so that he could use our lives as testimony. So we give ourselves over to God so that God can decide for us what God wants for us, and then we just trust. Okay, so I've got to give God my life and know that I have no say so in it. Everything that happens to me is because it's part of God's plan. And when I heard Joyce Meyer say that, she talked about being sexually molested at the hands of her biological father. I cannot even begin to put myself in her. You know, some people, you're like, well, just put yourself in his shoes. Like, and you feel like, I think I can imagine what that's like. Like, I think I can get there if I try, but I can't even begin to imagine what that's like. And she said, I was watching her say it, not what somebody told me. I was watching the video of her saying that she believed that God put her through that so that she could be a better Christian. Why would God need you to be an alcoholic? Why would God need you to be addicted to sex? Why would God need you to be addicted to food so that you can become a better Christian? There's no other way God can help you. What do you mean be a better Christian? Like, how many ways can you be a Christian? Either you're a Christian or you're not. Or wait, are you a true Christian? Are you a real Christian? Are you a right Christian? Are you a left Christian? Are you a conservative? Like, what are we talking about here? And so this notion of turning everything over, it's the same thing, getting rid of control, that keeps us from doing what Lemuel's mother asked him to do. She said, you are going to have to speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves. You're going to have to fight for people who cannot fight for themselves. You're going to have to protect the rights of people who are being marginalized and exploited. You can't do that if you don't believe you have any power. You can't do that if you're waiting on God to tell you it's okay for you to speak up today. I don't need God to tell me it's okay for me to speak up. I see injustice. I'm going to address it. I see that somebody needs to be held accountable. I'm going to hold them accountable. I don't even have to think about that. I don't have to get on my knees and pray about it. I don't have to wonder if I'm the right person. I don't have to wonder if this is God's will for us. We don't have to ask permission to be human. Dog moment. Are you having one, or you feel like I have one? No. And so here's another one. I think this is step 8. Step 8. So what they had to do in step 8 is you had to make a list of all the persons who you had harmed, and then you had to become willing to make amends to them all. So all of the people that you have harmed, you got to make a list of all those people, and then you have to be willing to make amends to them all. And then I think the next step, it doesn't say it here, but I think the next step is you actually have to make the amends. Like right here, it says become willing to make the amends. But then the next step is you have to actually go and wait and make the amends. And I thought about this, and this is not from the ERV. This is from the New King James Version, because I wanted that word confess to be in here. So Romans 10, 9 and 10, this is what it says. The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of faith which we preach. That if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart one believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. So the scripture says you got to say out loud so somebody else can hear you that you believe that Jesus is your Lord. Like, you got to say that. And in order for you to believe that Jesus is your Lord, you have to confess your sins. You got to admit that you are a sinner and that you need the grace of Jesus. And so I have to say it out loud for somebody else to hear me, so that they will know that I am trying my best to make this step of being saved. So the same concept of I gotta go to folks and tell them all the wrong that I've done, so that I can be free from the harm, free from the snares of the addiction. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with circling back and saying to a person that, hey, I'm sorry that I harmed you. I don't have a problem with that. The problem that I have is that we feel like we have to say it, because in here, in Alcoholics Anonymous, you got to say it to everybody. You got to say it to everybody in that room. So now everybody knows all of your business about what you've done. And sometimes that's just not the best way to operate, letting everybody know your business. Oh, so okay. So you said Lo says he had a dog moment. However, some curse cut so deep that there is no healing, only toleration. Some hurts cut so deep. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not one who believes that that everybody has to be. I'm not one who believes that you have to seek forgiveness, or that you have to forgive people. I'm not one that believes that at all. Yeah, I don't think that you have to forgive folks. And in the Bible, it says you have to forgive, because if you don't forgive, God's not going to forgive you. But again, that's intimidation. That's fear. That's what that is. That's not human, because it just boggles my mind how we have folks, especially in the Black community, who our family members will have been gunned down in the street. And before we can even make it to the funeral, you've already forgiven the perpetrator. Like, that's not even human to me. So we are operating on this autopilot of what we've been indoctrinated to believe we're supposed to do to make Jesus happy. And that ain't the right way to live, because you've already been endowed with everything that you need in order to function in this world as a good human, as one who takes the advice of Lemuel's mother. Like, I'm going to speak up for folks. I'm going to help folks. I'm going to protect folks. I'm going to do right by folks. I want to live equally and equitably among folks. Like, I don't have to be a Christian to do that. I don't have to be a Jew to do that. I don't have to be in any religion to do that. That is just being a good human. Like, that's what that is. So here's step 11, spiritual awareness, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. The only thing I want to know every single day, God, is what do you want from me? What do you want me to do with my life? Tell me what to do. And so I thought about Jeremiah 29:11 on the right side. It says, I say this because I know the plans that I have for you. This message is from the Lord. I have good plans for you. I don't plan to hurt you. I plan to give you a hope and a good future. And so I'm trusting that God has this good plan for my life. And so I'm turning myself over to God so that God will make it happen every single day. God, which way do I go? Do I turn left? Do I turn right? Do I go up? Do I go down? Do I go straight? Do I go backwards? Like, I can't function unless you tell me what to do. And I just find that hard to believe with the complexity of our lives. Like, because many of us are parents, we're parents, we're lovers, we're spouses, we are employees, we are daughters or sons or nieces. Like, we have so much complexity. Like, imagine what it would be like every single day if you had to stop for every single time you need to do something. Say, wait a minute, God, is this what you want me to do? Is this which way you want me to go? And even if you say, well, I just need them to tell me at the beginning of the week. Like, some things that happen on Friday, you already know what the situation is going to be on Monday, don't you? Like, can you have a little bit more? Because I'm trying not to ask for too much. Can you trust yourself as much as you trust God? Is that possible? Says Here's low. Jesus gave the Great Commission as to how to live and treat others. Well, Jesus basically said, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. That's pretty much it. So on these two laws hang, on these two commandments hang all the laws and the prophets. So everything you've been told up until this moment, let me break it down for you. Let me do a bottomline.com. Let me just make it plain. Two things: love God and love your neighbor as yourself. All this other stuff about tithing and singing and not, like all of that other stuff, if you want to do it, it's okay, but it's not a requirement. Not says God. That's some stuff we say. And so then the final one is step 12, is service. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Please hear what they are saying. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I thought immediately of Matthew chapter 28. Verses 18 through 20. So he came to them and said, this is Jesus, all authority in heaven and on earth is given to me. So go and make followers of all people in the world. Baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Teach them to obey everything that I have told you to do. You can be sure that I will be with you always. I will continue with you until the end of time. And so the goal of every Christian, just like the goal of every member of Alcoholics Anonymous, is to go out and make some more people like you. To go out and teach people what you learn, teach people what you have, give them what you have so they can be like you. Like, that's the ultimate goal. That's our ultimate aim. And I have to say this. So the man that actually took over from the Oxford group, William Griffith, see, he believes that he had a spiritual awakening as a result of these 12 steps. But he believes he had a spiritual awakening because his daddy had a spiritual awakening. So his daddy was an alcoholic as well. And his daddy had gone to like a revival kind of thing. And he had done that like a week before. He went up to this mountain and saw this like amazing white light. It was a white light that he saw. And from that day until the day he died, he no longer had a drink of alcohol. And so this experience, this spiritual awakening that he had, his son now takes. He knows the story. So now he's going through Alcoholics Anonymous. He actually meets one of his friends who was a drinker with him before. They used to drink together a long time ago. He meets his friend later in life. The friend no longer drinks. And he's like, what? How did that happen? So the friend kind of introduces him to what becomes Alcoholics Anonymous. And he feels like he had this awakening. And so now, because I've had this awakening, I believe my job is to go and teach other people how they can have an awakening. Now, I thought the goal was to help people to conquer their addiction. I ain't know the goal was to make disciples, right? And so there's this bait and switch that happens while you are in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so people, some of them who are in Alcoholics Anonymous, are not even aware that this is happening. They are struggling every day, striving to get free, striving to break the stronghold of alcohol or narcotics, whatever their addiction is. And so that's what I'm focused on. And so all the stuff that's coming along the way, like, it's coming, but I'm not really thinking about it. It's not until later that I'm like, wait, what? And so we do the same thing with Christianity. We do the same thing with religion. Think about it for just a moment. Remember the story, What's Love Got to Do with It? When Tina Turner has that kind of nervous breakdown after she and Ike get into it for the last time. It's like, this is when she really started fighting back. She in that car, she's swinging. I mean, she ain't playing with him no more. And she's in the dressing room, and she's putting on her lipstick, and it goes all like and her friend realizes, oh my goodness, what's going on? So she ends up in the hospital. Her friend comes in at the moment that she is most vulnerable, and she offers to her spiritual practice, which is Buddhism. And Tina Turner is a Buddhist to this day. And so it's not it's not really hard to see how it's easy to catch somebody when they are most vulnerable and offer to them that which we hope they will have, that which is ours, that we love, that we want for them, and we give it to them hoping that you'll now be like me. I can now call you a disciple of whatever it is, whoever it is that I'm following. Lo says, sounds like Constantine the ruler, yet he claimed to be a convert to Christianity, although he was a sun worshiper. Yeah, so Constantine wasn't really concerned about Christianity. He was concerned about power, and the people that he believed had the most power and prestige and status were people who called themselves Christians. So he's like, let me get in good with them so that I can maintain power and control. And so that's what he does. He doesn't just say, I'm going to be a Christian. Like, he declares Christianity to be the religion of the whole, the whole region. Like kind of like what we're not kind of like what we're doing, but we live in a Christocentric society now. Like, that's why you got all these crosses going up. Like, we want everybody to be a Christian, and if you are not, you are different, and we're going to treat you differently. So that is what's happening. And so the question for us tonight is to ask ourselves, is it possible that we are meeting people in their most vulnerable state, when they are unsheltered, when they are hungry, when they lack access to healthcare, when they don't have a family, when they don't have community, they are at their most vulnerable? Is it possible that we take advantage of that vulnerability to offer them Christ when really we ought to be meeting them at the point of their need? Jesus doesn't have to have, like, whether or not they love Jesus has nothing to do with me being able to assist you to get some housing. I don't have to bring Jesus into this conversation. Not at all. That's not what this is about. In some churches, I used to hate this when I was a pastor. Some churches would feed you, but they would give you a ticket, but you had to sit through the service before you could get fed. Right? Like, people are hungry. Feed them. Like, why they gotta have a service? So just asking us to think about how we use, and is it possible that we are exploiting our faith, because our goal is to make disciples, our goal is to make Jesus followers, rather than be fully present to meet the needs that people have. Just something to think about. And I'll be interested in what y'all come up with. Let me know. Thank you so much for joining us for The Good Fight. I'll be right back here next Tuesday, 7 to 8 o'clock CST. Bye.